So the first endpoint that we want to implement is the list beers endpoint. And our service implementation was pretty late. And what I've done on the screen there, you can see that I've refactored it a little bit. I didn't think we need to go through this step by step. So I've added a beer map property, and I'm initializing that map inside of the constructor. So you can see here I've added a noargs constructor. We initialize that to a hash map, and then I'm adding 3 different beer objects to it, and then setting the keys to the ID value of each beer, and then setting the beer object to the map property. So nothing too complicated there. And what we want to do here is we want to add in a method to list beers, and we want this to return back a list of beers. So this is a very simple implementation of list beers just to get us going on our API. And we want this to return back just the values of the beer map. And then this, our get beer by ID, this can be refactored to actually be functional now. Beer map get by ID. So this will set us up for when we want to implement the get beer by ID option. Now we can also say override, and of course IntelliJ's not going to be happy about that, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up to beer service. See that IntelliJ's automatically adding that to that. So now this sets us up for modifying our beer controller. So we're going to return back a list of beers, like so, and I'm going to modify this from a regular Spring MVC to a REST controller. By doing REST controller, that's a handy annotation, so you can download the sources on this. So this is a convenience annotation that basically sets up to return back a response body. So this is telling Spring to treat this as a REST controller and to return back the proper response body. So that means that we will be turning back JSON and not HTML, but effectively. So the next thing we want to do is come over here, request mapping. If I remember right, it was just API v1 beer. And now I'm going to toggle over to Postman, or actually, first I got to start this. Let's start up our Spring application, make sure that we don't get any errors in the console. And we can see that Tomcat has started on port 8080 and is now listening. I'm going to toggle over to Postman now. Previously we were looking at the application server running up on my website, so now let's change this to localhost 8080 API v1 beers. So let's go ahead and run that. And now we can see that we are getting back a JSON response. So this is coming back as a list of objects, and we can see the data that we created. So this is that map implementation that we added to the service, now being returned back by Spring MVC in the JSON format. So let me toggle back over to IntelliJ and recap what we changed. So the largest change that we made was inside of our beer service implementation to add in a map that now we are initializing in the constructor to generate the data that we're providing. So normally this would be done by a database, but the focus of this section of the course is going to be on writing the web portion of it. And then in the beer controller, we changed this to be a REST controller, which is going to return back a response body automatically. So this list of beers is going to get converted to JSON. The next important thing that we changed was adding in this annotation of request mapping. That is mapping the path API v1 beer to the list of beers. So when a request comes in, we invoke our service to get the list of beers. That is returned back to the view handler, which in this case is going to be Jackson, to produce the JSON response.